noter. This is what we're going to talk about. And I only use this model. I use it if I'm seller financing, we're going to create two notes. Okay? We're going to have two notes in there. And the reason is it gives the flexibility, safety, liquidity, and speed. I'm going to show you why that is. Are we rolling? All right. We're not on a page. Have I said this before? All right, I don't need to say it again. I'm just showing you one model. All right, so this is the one we're going to go look at on Saturday. This is the same one, 1948 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, den, separate glass room, package unit, needs $5,000 of repair on Pinedale, okay? You got the house. Can you visualize that house? Decent street, homeowner wants to move in. For those that are in Jackson, you see where that is. It's north of McDowell. You got that? You know where the tennis courts are on McDowell? It's not very far from there. All right, so here's the tax roll. Built in 1958, 1948 square feet. That's a pretty big 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, isn't it? Got a nice backyard, central air and heat, if it's still there. 62,000 assessment. Owned by Tamika. All right, so what do you think about that? It's a big house, so that would be at the higher end of the affordable housing, right? So I got to buy that cheap enough to give me to afford to fix it in order to create notes that I would sell at a discount to get the money to go do it again. So that's the big picture, is I'm recycling the money. So if I had Scott's line of credit, we wouldn't be dealing with the old and treacherous people, because old and treacherous money is more expensive than what he just said. It is. And so if you can, you can partner, joint ventures. So there are times you want a joint venture, and it's a decision, and it's a moving target, because, see, Keith is the money person now. He's on the other side of the wealth accumulation. He's done that. And he did it right with IRAs, with inherited IRAs and Roth IRAs. I mean, that's perfect. You know, all that, isn't that making sense now, what Quincy was talking about? If you had that tax-free entity for a qualified distribution, there is nothing better than that. And so that's the reason we laid that out. So here's the house. This is the guy that's going to be moving into this house is also a repair guy. I said, go make me an offer on fixing it up. Now, do you think he's going to fix it up better than my guys would? Yep. You think they'd get it done quicker? Yep. Yes, and he's got the skills. So he took that list right there, and he said, and he went to Lowe's and priced it out and gave me the quote on every bit of that material. That's more than my guys would have done.
$150 to paint the entire interior of the property.
So is he giving me?
Number?
No. I'm selling him the house. I'm giving him something. So this is labor right here. This is labor. That's labor. That's what it is. So I'm going to trade him out. I like trading down payments for labor. I really like that. It makes a lot of sense to do that. You're going to see that. We were going to meet today, but I hadn't reached her yet. So we're going to have a real closing if we can get her here. We've already got it sold. And so what I do, I want to know what I can sell it for. That's very important. Now, when I add the financing, that means I can sell it at a higher price, right? Because Keith said we're selling payments. Affordability. What would that house rent for, guys, in town? Who's got a number?
800.
Okay, 800, 850. So if I could get her payments around 600, do you think that's? Now, does it matter how long it is? Not really. If it's a decent house, you could. I put them not more than 15 years. I'd like to do it less, but I don't want to do it at the giving up all my profit. That house in 2003, 4, and 5 would have sold for $80,000. It did sell for $80,000. Not today. All right. So I got to figure out, that's the first thing, how am I going to get rid of this? That's my first thought. And so when somebody, local wholesalers, pitch me a house, Glenn Anthony comes up and says, I'll sell it to you for 16.5, I'm thinking, what can I sell it for? Whatever that answer is, it dictates whether I buy it or not. Do you do the same thing, Keith? You do, I mean, isn't that what you guys do? You're doing that mental, I mean, but you're doing it so fast you don't have to think about it. You don't even know you're doing that. Yeah, I can sell that. It'll be good enough. So what I do, part of the evaluation of coming up with what their payment's going to be is I want to look what the county taxes are after they file homestead. All right, so I put in the value up there in the city of Jackson. With regular homestead, it's $904 a year. Is that high in Florida or not? Would that be high compared to your market? See, he was talking about Florida, no state tax at the break. That's low compared to your market because you don't have state tax, but you got higher property taxes, right? Right. All right, so non-homestead, $1,700. That means if you're going to keep it as a rental, it's $1,700. A year. Now, so with additional homestead over 65 or disabled, what's that number? 0. So if that person happened to be disabled, medically disabled, and can prove it, they're not going to pay any taxes. That's an ideal person to sell to, in my book, because these medical disabled people get up to $3,000. I've got a tenant right now that gets a $3,000 check for being medically disabled. Can they afford a $600 payment? Absolutely. Now, do I care whether they get a job? Well, actually, they can't go get a job that pays more than $1,000 a month because they lose their benefits, right? So is that who I'm looking at? So Mississippi's got a higher number of medically disabled people, mainly because a lot of people have figured out how to game the system, right? Yeah, it's harder to move, but they're going to get those payments for life. And when they die, they're probably not going to notify anybody who's sending them checks that somebody died, right? So that, you know, I mean, that's the reality. They're going to get those checks forever. So when homestead is filed, taxes are $75 a month. So I'm trying to back into my numbers. How much is taxes? $75 a month. Well, I know that. And just for taxes and insurance, basically it's $140 to $160 a month. So I know that number, but you don't know that. I'm proving to you that what the numbers are. All right, so I'm just going to say it's $155. Servicing, taxes, insurance, servicing. So we're going to get to servicing in a minute. But I'm just saying that's what the escrows are, is $155. So what did we say it would rent for? All right, so what can the principal and interest payment, what can they afford? We know they got a $155 cost. 600? Is that what you said? You could afford that? What about, who's got another number?
I said
7. All right, so that would be if I'm trying to match payments with the rent. Well, does that give them any incentive? Might they walk? They might. So I got to give them more incentive than that. So what do you think I could afford? At your 500? 550? So you're going to, so with the 155 and 550, that's a $700 payment. So you say the 100 under, I want to get way under. I want my payment calculation to be $600. Why? Because I've given them real incentive to stay there. Now the shorter the amortization, the more crack cocaine they're going to start taking. Meaning it's going to cost them more money because they see that loan paying off. I want to get people hooked on cheap housing that I'm providing so they won't walk. And it's for their benefit. I finance many people in the lower point of the affordable housing band for 50 payments, 60 payments, 70 payments, 80 payments, fully amortizing. I'm talking about 180 payments. And what you'll find is if you get to the higher band of that affordable housing, which I'm going to call 55, and let's say it's 55 to 25, is going to be where the retail price of this home would be 55 to 25. So this would be the low end of the band, and the 55 might be the high end. You're going to make more money if you deal with the high-end properties. Ma'am?
You're saying the rent would be somewhere in the 400 range?
The principal and interest payment, I'm calculating needs to account for the 155 for their total payment to be 200 less than rent.
Okay.
That's what I was getting around to saying. So what does that mean? So how much can I afford the principal and interest to be?
I can tell you the answer to the question.
What's that?
You're gonna sell the house to them on the low side of 37 and on the high side of 48.
Okay. So what is it worth? Well, the only value that we have is what the tax assessment is, and that's not a good indicator in our market of value. All right, who's got a retail sale in South Jackson? Jay, have you got any of those? What would a 1,900 square foot house appraise for in South Jackson?
That particular street, probably around 60.
All right, 60. Do you have appraisals in the 70s, 80s? Is Will still, he's not in the room. All right, so I don't know what it's worth. I'm not really concerned about it worth. I'm wondering what can I sell it for? That's a whole different conversation, isn't it? All right, so the maximum mortgage payment that I think is going to be $450. So how do I get to $450? So I know, according to Keith, who helped me get my interest rate, I know that what that is, and I know that it's $450. So I know I'm not going to go more than 180 payments just as my model. I want to get it on a shorter payment. So let's back into the numbers. So we've said what it'll rent for. Now, how I come up with these numbers, and this is just a guy who this is all I use. In Quincy's examples, this is what he used too. He's just a guy who created a free amortization schedule, and this is all I use. I don't use anything else. So I used to know how to use HP 12C and all those. I don't know how to use them anymore because I don't need to use them. For my purposes, just go to brettwhistle.net. He's a guy who works at one of the Florida universities, astronomy teacher. He's still around. I called him up. I tried to buy this from him to white label it. He said, I don't need you. I said, bye. Get lost. But this is what it looks like. So we're going to let's just see how the numbers work. So if we said 460 at 180 payments at 7.75%, what do you think that's going to be? 460 a month. Well, let's calculate. It's 48.8, and so we're going to get a down payment. So that'd be, let's say, a $4,000 down payment. That'd be 52. So you were close, JB. Close. All right. So at 460, so it amortizes 48.8. That's how I'll come up with the number. Well, you get to play around with it. So what if we wanted to see? Look, we changed the number to 440 here. Just $20 difference. So it amortizes 46. So what was the difference? 46.7, 48.8. Not a lot of difference, is it? Do you think it makes any difference to the tenant? No. Does it make any difference to me? Well, I'm already giving up some potential profit. If he says it's worth 60, I'm going to sell it for less than that. And you're just picking numbers, right? I mean, I asked you to pick a number. We don't know what it's worth. So I'm going to settle on 450. Just sake of argument. 180 payments, that's 47.8. So if I can get $4,000 down, how much is that? That's $51,000. 51.8. Can I sell that house for 51.8 if I spend the $5,000 on it? Yeah, now we don't really know what it's going to cost to fix it. I think we were talking about that the other day. I got an estimate of $4,000, but I'm trading out some labor. But do you really think you know what it's going to cost to fix a house? No. I could easily be $5,000 off, and have been. You, Keith? Yeah, you don't know what's wrong with that house. I don't know. So you just got to do the best you can and get enough cushion in there to make up for not knowing. Because again, we said that the other day, we make instantaneous decisions with limited information that have real consequences. So I'm just making the best. Now I know that I could rent it, so I can throw enough money at it to rent it for $800 a month, right? So with that, so that's what I got. That's what I'm going to try. So I came up with a number. That's what I'm going to sell it for. So this is back office calculations. I just figured, so 603 total, I'm just totaling up the servicing, and I'm putting in there $20 for servicing. We don't know yet what that's going to cost yet. We know that we can get that done cheaper with some people, but they're not going to include the escrows in that, right? Nobody's going to do escrows and receive payments and make payments for you for less than $20. If they are, they're not going to have good service. It's, because they can't make any money. That's the reason I'm not in the property management is I can't make any money at it. I had 140 houses, and I had a management company, but I just couldn't make any money. It required too much expense. So that's what I'm saying. They got to make some money or they're not going to provide the service, one or the other, or they're going to go broke. All right, so when I talk to a homeowner, I don't have to tell them everything what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, look, I think it'll rent for $800. Do you agree? Yeah, I agree with that. Why don't we try to get around the $600, $625 range? Would that work with your budget? Yeah, that will. All right, so what about, so I'm going to need some money, some skin in the game. How much you got? Well, I got $1,000. Well, I'm not going to give you a deed to a house for $1,000. Do you blame me? No. Well, I got the guy that's going to be living with me who does this work, and he was very professional. So I'm willing to trade some of that down payment for the right worker. Now, as a sidebar, aid to dependent children is the worst thing that Congress ever did, in my estimation, because it encourages that couple not to get married. Because when they get married, they lose the government check. Y'all know about that? So we have a lot of people, they're all fiancés, right? Why? Because they didn't give up their government check that their kids get up until they're 18 if they get married. And Geraldine, is that right? All right, so I'm not going to I never tell everybody what I'm doing because it doesn't matter. I don't even need to tell you what I'm doing. I don't have any reason to, except I'm trying to show you what I do so you can come to town and do it too. That's the only reason I'm showing you this. So we'll have something like this. Sharon Jones, that's not her real number up there, 1111. And I'm going to take, the seller is going to be Improving Jackson. 51.8 with 4,000 down, so I give them the calculation. So it's financing plus 4,000 here. There are no closing costs to you. Is that a benefit? If approved, your payment will be in the range of $600 to $625. I've already done the calculation, so I'm going to go to the high side because it may be the high side. Because the servicer provides insurance or sells insurance, and I want them to sell it, and they escrow it, and they provide insurance, but insurance is purchased based on their credit score. You know that? Yeah. So I don't know what it's going to cost them for insurance. I know that it's going to be cheaper than my insurance because their insurance company is the same insurance company that I use, which is Lloyd's of London. They just got more accounts than I got. Okay? I know the agent. So we suggest, so this is the proposal. We suggest, by the way, I've sent you all this stuff. You got it all in what's in front of you. We suggest, so this would, if you want to follow it, it's the homeowner proposal in your book. And you can look at it on the page. We suggest that your ownership in the property will be as a beneficiary of a trust named that. Now, putting it in a trust is not a deal killer. I'm saying I just think it's a good thing for you to do. You don't have to do this, but so I asked the question, do you know what a judgment is? Oh yeah, we know what a judgment is. We know exactly, because many people have medical bills. Most people in our community have some kind of medical judgment. Why? Because they can go over here to the University Hospital and check in the emergency room and never pay anything. And they're going to treat them, and they're going to send them a bill, and they're not going to pay it. Obamacare, this was before Obamacare, okay? This has been going on for years. Am I right? I mean, is anything different about that? I question in some cases it doesn't make any sense to have insurance if you can just go check in the emergency room, they'll treat you. Why would you want to pay $977 a month? Just a thought. Okay. So this will allow you to still file for homestead, which is a reduced property tax amount. They don't know what homestead is. I'm just telling them. That's what it is. There are two kinds of homestead, by the way. There's one for property taxes and the one having to do with ownership of married property. Yes, sir?
So you mentioned the judgment, so I don't know if you finished your thoughts, so are you saying a judgment precludes you from getting a homestead?
So a trust, as maybe Steve covered this, is a newly created entity. It never existed before.
But does the judgment preclude you from getting the homestead exemption?
The judgment has nothing to do with
I don't
homestead.
know. You just mentioned
Yeah.
people with judgment, so I was wondering what the consequences.
No, the judgments, what I'm trying to do, and I explained it to him. I said, look, you're not going to own this house forever. Would you agree? Well, yeah. And so I tell him, I said, you know, the great thing about you coming in here is the fact that you're going to be able to leave your kids something that you wouldn't otherwise. You're going to be a renter all your life. And they have been a renter all their life up to this point. I said, is that right? So I'm leading them down a very specific path to come to the same conclusion that I want them to come to. I'm into sales, right? All right, so judgments. You know what a judgment is? Yeah, I know what a judgment is. You got any? Well, let's see. So I'll pull out the TLO right there in front of them. Let's see, you got any judgment? Well, most of the time they have, years ago, some kind of judgment that's still on the TLO report, most of the time. But you know, judgments don't last but 7 years, but that doesn't mean it's not on the TLO report. And so I said, well, what happened there? Well, my baby got sick. I had to go to the emergency. Okay, I understand that. I understand that. I mean, you got to have, babies got to get treatment. So whatever's on that report, they're going to tell me what it is. You remember that? Is that you? Is that you? Is that your Social Security number? Yeah, that's you. That's me. And so they're going to explain to me, to my satisfaction, why those things are on there. I don't pull a credit report. They're meaningless. I'm not getting financing. I want to know where they paid the rent, where they got a job, where they got their income. I'm doing the same thing as qualifying them for Dodd-Frank for their ability to pay. I'm going to do the same qualification that anybody else would do. But, you know, they don't have to find out. Think about this. If you're going to call a landlord to get a verification of rent and the landlord doesn't know that they're leaving, that might lead to a crisp conversation, right? So, right? And so I asked them. I said, now, when I call your landlord, what are they going to tell me? Well, they're going to tell you that I paid every time. I said, really? Give me the number. And if I can verify that, and they've already been up front with them, that's when you find out whether they're telling you the truth. Well, I had paid my rent in 3 months, and I'm evicting them. Really? So you want me to sell you a house that you're getting thrown out of? That's usually the end of the conversation. Now, what would make an equalizer for me? Yeah. Yeah, well, all that rent you didn't pay, rent man, I want you to pay it to me up front. Think about that. People that hadn't paid their rent for 10 months, shouldn't they have some money? Well, yeah. All right.
Walter?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I swear, the fact the property's in trust, does that affect homestead exemption?
No, not here, not here. So that's why I named it after them. Here, in this state, if their name is in the name of the trust, and they can prove that it's them, and they can prove that they're the beneficial owner, they can file a homestead. Very cool, huh?
Thank you.
Now, that may not be true in Texas. It may not be true other places. So the deadline for filing is April 1. So we got a parade of people down there between January 2nd and April 1. Go down there. They're used to seeing these trusts. They're no stranger to my documents. Because Cindy's gone down there many times. How many times have you been down there with them? Yeah, so she knows everybody down there. She knows them by name. They call her up when we got a problem with the paperwork. That happens sometimes. And so once they file homestead, it's a one-time filing. And as long as the title doesn't change, then they're going to get that reduced taxation forever. And if it's a medical disability, it will always remain a medical disability until the person who's receiving the benefit medical disability tells them differently. You think they're going to call them up and tell them they're no longer on medical disability? No, and there's no checks and balances for finding that out anyway. But that's not my concern because they're the one talking to them. Okay? So that newly created trust that Steve talked about doesn't have any judgments because it's like forming a new LLC today. How many judgments does that have? None. And so their personal judgments do not attach to a newly created trust, even though it's named after the person that might have the judgments. Benefits of trust, I'm trying to protect the title in the case I got to take it back. Whether I'm protecting their title is secondary to me. But I'm not couching it. I'm very careful about how I sell a concept. I tell them what I want them to know. I'm not trying to educate them on real estate. I'm trying to say, do you want this? And here's the price. This is what you need to know. They're civilians. They've never bought a house in their life. And by the way, all you experienced people, you don't know the difference either. Because you don't do enough real estate transactions to know whether that's a good thing or not. Most people. Isn't that right? Just a table full of people in here use trust. So I'm just trying to protect my interests. You remember I talked about moving the risk line? I'm trying to move that line in my favor as best I can. So this is still part of the proposal. The financing of the wraparound note, disclosure number 1, will be created and executed by your trustee. Then I tell them, look, you own this trust, right? As beneficiary, you're the beneficial owner of it, but everything that's got to be signed has got to be done by a trustee. Now, does it matter to me whether they choose a trustee or I choose it? Why would it matter? Once that deed of trust is recorded, I don't care what happens. Right? Is that right, Keith? Could they sell it? Sure, they can sell it. If they direct their trustee to sell it, but it doesn't extinguish the debt that's of record. As a lender, I am protected at the lender level. They can do whatever they want to with it. But if they don't pay, I'm going to foreclose them. That's how it works, right? So, usually they don't choose a trustee. This isn't an IRA deal for them. This is just a house, right? Y'all got it? You paying attention, Don? All right, so it'll be created, executed by your trustee. You will not sign the note and deed of trust. Why? Because they're beneficiaries. They don't sign. They don't have any personal liability. That's the reason banks don't loan to trust, because beneficiaries don't have any personal liability. Neither does the trustee. The trustee will sign on your behalf. It is understood that even though you're not signing personally for the loan, if the payments are not made on a timely basis, the house will be foreclosed. Do you understand what that means? This is a question I ask them. If you don't pay, you don't stay. Is that clear? I understand that. I'm trying to get it in terminology so they can understand. You don't pay, you don't stay. The signing of this proposal will direct your trustee to execute the $47,000 wrap. That's the direction to the trustee, right there. Ma'am.
So you have to tell them it's a wrap loan?
I do. I want them to know it's a wrap loan. It's part of the disclosure. I had a lady who took me to court saying I did not disclose that, and I disclosed it in many different ways, but she used that excuse to try to get a free house. Did I mention about Crazy? Crazy doesn't show up at the first. Crazy is a little bit later. The judge threw it out, by the way. All right, homestead exemption. You must file for homestead exemption or disability at the Hinds County tax assessors before April 1st next year, but not before January 2nd. So we got it on the calendar. We'll call them up. You ready to go down there? Of course, it's always the last week that we're rushing, right, Cindy? And we go down there and file, and we usually get them all. Repair. Buyer is purchasing as is, but seller will make sure all plumbing and electrical are in good working order at the time of the purchase. That's fair. And then really, if we got anything more, that happens over the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to make sure it's right. You don't know what's wrong with the house when they move in. Like, you're going to go around and check every plug? No, you don't do that. You go hook the lamp up. Hey, that doesn't work. Yeah, we'll get that fixed. Closing date. All right, conveyance will be by special warranty deed and subject to the existing financing. Another disclosure, right? Now, when they get down to signing this, the wrap will be prepared by the servicer in future models. They're going to do that for a fee. And Dodd-Frank, MLO qualifying, the servicer is going to do that. They're going to prepare the documents. They're going to prepare the disclosure documents with Mississippi disclosures. That's an upgrade, isn't it? Yeah, it's an upgrade. That's what you want as a private lender. So the reason for that is Dodd-Frank, they said they made the assumption that a licensed mortgage loan originator knows everything about everything and does everything right. So if you use one, regardless if they do it right, they're the default. Did I say that right, Pat? So now if something's not right, I'm secondary on the line of fire. The licensed mortgage loan originator is in the first position, and I'm willing to pay for that. It takes you off the hook as the seller financing provider. Closing date, there we go. So, all right, I'm going to buy this house for that amount of money, $16,000. I'm going to know I'm going to spend $5,000. I may spend $10,000. So I'm going to get financing, and we've already got it. So we're going to see if they still want to do the deal over here. So I sent Neil a proposal this morning for him to fund it. So we'll see if he likes the fact that I'm making some money on this. So if I have $22,000 out, so that's $5,000 plus the 16, right? I'm just saying it's 22, including repair. What should the first mortgage be if I wanted to get all my cash back, all of my investment back? What should it be? If I got 22 out, what should it be? What, 22? Note, right? And then if I sold the note, then I got my money back, except those people who are buying these notes, like Old and Treacherous, he wants a better yield than 7.75. He wants to fund for less, so that means I got to create a note for a little more, 24 perhaps. So
I can tell you. What do you want? 12, 10? He's only paying 10.
all right, so he's doing the calculation. Let me show you. I got the numbers because I can drag this thing. So I put 24 up there, 7.5%, 450 is a payment. I want to know how many payments that is. How many payments you think that is? You know, you can't tell unless you run amortizations. There's no way for you to guess that. How many? 80?
75.
75? Come on, who's got another? Come on, step out there and make it. We ought to be able to do this in our head, right? Come on, Jimmy. 66.
Well, I did 25,000.
Yeah, that's right. So 66 payments is kind of like selling off a partial. If I did the regular loan, I could sell off 66 payments of $450 a month, and I could get $22,000 for that. That's what a partial is, right? Selling off a partial. Now, see, it messes up the payment because it's not an exact calculation. It's a couple of dollars off, so you have to adjust that. So 66 payment amortizes $24,000. Now, would that be a good loan to buy? I'm selling it for 51. I'm going to get 4 down or close to it. Is that a safe? See, I just moved the risk line for the lender by instead of selling all of the note, I sold just the first 66 payments, and I do it with a first mortgage. Okay? Did I minimize the money person's risk? Would the money person like, after it's fixed up, would you like the payments to stop? So I'm putting them in a safer collateral loan-to-value position than I'm in. But I don't have any money in it. So who's it's your money. I mean, you think about that story that Tom told about he had some skin in the game in that big house play, but mostly it wasn't your money. You didn't have anything at risk except how much did you put down? 75, is that what you said?
Closer to 150.
All right, so you had 150 in the game, right? But the majority of the money that was at risk was not your money.
Correct.
So the lender takes the risk. I'm just trying to minimize the lender's risk by putting them in a shorter amortization, get it back faster. So if that loan starts out at 24 and it's 66 payments, after, let's just say 33 payments, how much do you think it's worth? A little more than half, right? A little more than half. So would that lender then like to have that house back when their cost basis now is somewhere around 15? Yes. So I'm putting the lender in a position of making more money if I defaulted. Do lenders like that, Richard?
Yeah, but can I just get you to, take over the payments and don't call me?
All right, so that's what, he doesn't want to be hassled. And that's exactly right. I would just take over the payments. You would never know that they're behind. Because the money's come to me, and and Quincy and I did a deal like this, that he never knew that they were behind. I wasn't going to tell him. Because I don't want to give up my, see, I don't make any money until you make money. Really.
And it goes after taking care of your.
All right, so now let's calculate what the funding amount needed would be for a 10% yield. So now we're discounting that $24,000 note, which is at 7.75. We're calculating for old and treacherous, he's got to have 10%. Well, not treacherous. You said you liked 10%, didn't you? So what do? We 10% there, the payment's $450-ish, 66 payments. How much do you think that discount is? We know it's a $24,000. 21.5? 22.6. All right, so see, you can't figure the number. Even us, even we can't figure out what it is in our head. Because we're not that good. These are financial calculations. So you said 22.6. Well, he happened to know that because I did this calculation earlier. 22.6, he's not that smart. All right, so how much did I discount it? 22.6, $24,000. How much is that? Who said not much? That's exactly right. Yeah, $1,400. So the difference between 7.75 and 10% is $1,400. Would you rather pay Keith half the deal to provide the money, or would you rather discount it $1,600? Well, maybe, unless there's some other reason that you wanted to deal with old and treacherous over there. Which there are a lot of reasons you'd want to deal with him. A lot. All right, so Quincy he's going to go resell that money at 12%. That's the reason he's going to take it. So this is what the model looks like. Two-noter right here, 66 payments is $24,000 at $450. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it. So I actually, with the homeowner, I draw it out on the table. This is how we do it. And I tell them, why do we do that? Because I got to take a financial partner on to help get some of my investment capital back so I can go provide housing for somebody else in your family. Do you have anybody in your family that might want a house? You see how I'm building, recruiting allies at every... Yes, my mother wants a house and my sister wants a house. Okay, so that's why I tell them I'm doing it. That's not why I'm doing it. I mean, that is a reason. That's not my primary reason. I want to get my money back so I don't have anything in it so I can go do it again. Right? Isn't that what we want? But wait, Doctor, no, good he left the room. So if the IRA is the beneficiary of the land trust that acquires it, then the IRA borrows money. That's a potential unrelated business income tax, debt financing. So if you're going to buy it with your IRA, you got to put on the UBIT hat, and we can talk about that. I'm just telling you some possible additional taxes to your IRA. It's got to be non-recourse borrowing if you're IRA. So if I borrow money from Keith, by putting it in a trust, the trustee's not personally liable, nor the beneficiaries are personally liable. He knows it's not a recourse loan. He just figures he can get the money out of me some other way, if he needs to. So these are collateral-based loans, but they're also relational loans. Relational loans. By the way, your banker, do they do that? No. They're protecting their job. They want to go to the Kiwanis Club. That's what they want to do. All right, so a solo K would be a much better entity to do this in because the debt financing to IRA.
He's back. You're right.
No. If you're going to borrow money with your retirement account, debt leverage, would you agree that the solo K might be a good solution?
If other factors are considered, yes.
See, you can't get a straight answer out of him. So the unrelated debt financing rule doesn't apply to solo Ks. So if you're going to do this on a repeatedly basis, go open you up a solo K and just rip and run. Now, you may have, if you do enough business with this, repeated business, then you got the other kind of UBIT issue. I'm just bringing it up that you're going to have to study more than the time we got to talk about this. So what is the yield if I did the complete transaction from my Roth IRA or Roth solo K? So I'm saying I've got the $22,000. But wait, I'm going to get $4,000 down. Don't even think about it. I'm going to get $4,000 down, which reduces my cost basis, doesn't it? Right? Buying it for 16, I got a 5 repair. I'm going to get 4,000 when I sell it. So I can put out 22 from my IRA, and then I'm going to get 4,000 back when I get the down payment. So what's my cost basis? All right, so it's an $18,000 IRA investment. What is the note going to be? So it's not a first and a second now. It's just going to be a straight note. You don't need a first and a second unless you want to provide some liquidity for your IRA in case you ever need to get the cash to go do something else. So I'd still do the two-noter, even if I had all the money in the IRA, because it gives me that flexibility to sell it off if I need to get the cash. I mean, is that a sellable note?
We can sell a partial.
Could sell a partial, but who's ever done a partial in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. You like them? You like to sell them. They're complicated. My model is less complicated. Kathy, you think they're complicated? Do the people you explain the deal to think it's complicated? All right, so, you know, so they are, to answer your question, it's hard to explain because you got to anticipate what happens. You're running 2 amortizations when you're selling off a partial. You got a contract, you got an assignment with recourse, with a reversionary interest typically. And they're just more complicated than just selling a first mortgage. They are. I don't have to explain all that contract stuff. I tell you what, I've done one partial, and I had the paperwork. And I started when I left Jackson, Mississippi, and I didn't finish the document until I got to Tallahassee, Florida. My wife was driving the whole way. It took me that long to understand what the document is. They're complex documents. Yes, you can explain them, but why? It's just you're asking for brain damage. You don't need that. So, all right, so if I'm creating a $47,000 note, 7.75 for payments of $450 for 180 payments. And what is my cost basis on that? 18. So what do you think that is? 23, 24. All right, so this is a note guy telling that. Anybody else want to take another stab at it? If I got an investment in the note of $18,000 and it's a $47,000 note, would that be a good IRA investment? Do you know a better IRA investment?
Yeah, he's too low. I can tell you.
No, I'm not waiting for that. It's a 29% yield. So you want a 29%, you just go do this model with your IRA, forget about selling it off. Just go do this model. Okay? You got it? 29% yield. All right, so 29.62, but that is making the assumption that somebody's going to pay, right? Keyword. So could I sell 1/2 of the note? Could I sell 1/2 of that $47,000? Could I? Let's have an auction. Who wants to bid on it? What would you bid?
25% yield.
No, I want a dollar amount. What do you, for a half interest in that note? I want a dollar amount.
I don't know.
All right, would you pay 10,000 for a half interest in that note?
Yes.
Yeah, you would. You would. All right, I'm not going to sell it for that. What would I? So, Justin, what are you going to bid on it? Well, half of it at full value is what? 23.5. So we know it's not worth 23 because it's not cash. So what would you say it another way? What would you pay for a 23.5 note? You pay 15.
No, you pay at least 18.
18. Okay, you see how we're getting back to the same numbers? I just showed you 3 different ways to think about this. You turn it upside down. So I could sell half the note, but the good thing about selling half the note, who gets half the payment from day one?
You do.
Wally Pop at $450. So I can sell, basically, if I could sell it for what I got in it and keep half the payment. Is that a good deal? Is that a better deal than the other model? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so if I have $22,000 out, what should the first mortgage be if I want to get all my money back plus some potential future repairs that I don't know about today? So I got to get more than that $24,000. So if Wally wanted to put a few dollars in his pocket to protect against that air conditioner disappearing, which is going to cost me $5,000 to replace at a vacant house, then let's just do some calculations. So I know it's $450. What if instead of creating a 66 payment note, I created a 100 payment note? Could I do that? How long is that? 8.3 years. All right, 7.75. So we calculate, what is that? It's 30, 33, and 74. 33.74 for 100 payments at 7.75%. All right, so now I got to discount it to a 10% yield, so I'm doing the same thing at $33,000 more. Change the interest rate, calculate again. What do you think it's going to be? $30,450. Who's running the calculator back there? All right, so the transaction process, again, you contract with the seller. You create a lender proposal. Did I do that today, Neil, Lisa?
Yes.
You got it? Create and execute the trust documents. I'll do that. Deed into trustee created by the closing attorney. So the deed's coming in and we got a closing attorney. Now, we're going to add an element of what they're going to do if they still like the deal. I'm going to purchase title and property insurance. I'm going to create a first position promissory note, so I got the choice of any number that I want. I get to choose what note I'm going to sell. You get to choose whether you're going to buy it or not.
Right.
You don't get to choose what note I create. That's fair.
Good point. Good point.
Create the first position promissory note deed of trust, send the original promissory note to the lender. So I'm sending to Lisa and Neil. They're going to get a recorded original note. Who's going to sign it? I'm taking title in the trust as my trustee. It's going to be a non-recourse loan because trustees are not liable and beneficiaries are not liable. It's a collateral-based loan. Okay? Record the deed of trust, get it stamped, copy, scan it, and send it off. So I take it down there and say, record this sucker, stamp it, let me have a copy of it right now. It's recorded, bam, I send it off to them. So they got the original in the mail, they got a copy but I don't have the original deed of trust back because it takes about a week to get that back. Then it takes another week to get it off my desk at least, right, Keith? So then you get bids from the contractor to estimate the repair job. You find the buyer, negotiate the homeowner purchase or the proposal. Send a copy of the deed to the homeowner, of the deed and the homeowner proposal to the servicer. The servicer takes it from there. So they want to know that I own it. They want to know that I got a homeowner proposal. They do all the rest. Yes?
Okay, just one question. Maybe this is out of the spectrum. At what step after the, I'm assuming, we need to carry that insurance?
I get the
Blow
insurance.
up.
I get the insurance.
Oh, you do?
I get the insurance.
Oh, okay.
I got to have insurance to protect the lender's interest. That protects you. Okay, so we create a homeowner trust documents, and the attorney can do that, or you don't want to be practicing law. Somebody's got to create those trust documents, right? So, and the trust documents, the homeowner trust documents are in there. So you create a deed into the homeowner trustee, so you got to create the homeowner trust, and then the deed goes in there, right?
But once you created one,
It's a template.
yeah, it's a template.
Servicer will create the wraparound note. I'm not doing that. All I'm going to do is get them to sign it with all the disclosures. All right, do you like that? Yeah. Now that is a blueprint of one way to do it. So I went through that pretty fast. But you see why I do the calculations that I do and why. All right, now let's just back up. What did I get out of that deal? Let me just go.
Well, it depends, which deal you took.
What did I get? I got an investment that I've got payment 101 through 180. And how much is that payment? 450. And how many of those do I need in my future income stream? Well, they're not hard to create. You can see that. Do they all work out? No, they don't all work out. You got to get back in and resell them. And that's the nature of, I mean, this is a business, isn't it? Quincy would want me to say it's an investment if it's the IRA, but this is a business. And it's got problems. The problem is you got to solve what, every day, people ask me what I do. I create commerce and solve problems every day. I try to move the cheese into creating commerce, and I try to push back the problems. Isn't that every business? Every single business is that. I don't care if you're in the boat rental business or the Airbnb business, you're solving problems every day. If you don't want to solve problems, and Richard, he doesn't like to solve problems, he wants to set it up so he doesn't have to solve problems. And that's fair.
I have enough scars already.
Yeah, you don't need to learn anything else, do you? Right? And I would hope that we all reach that point where we've learned enough or have enough scars. All right, so could I do that in my IRA? Absolutely. Could I do, if I'm going to do a bunch of them, I'd do it in the solo K. So you mean that sale, if it's the IRA owns that trust, the capital gain portion, if it's in, do IRAs pay capital gain?
No.
No, typically not. So you could not even report that. There's not a mechanism to report that sale. Where would you report it? You're going to call up Quincy, I made a sale? He doesn't want to hear that. So why does he not even care? Because the IRA, this is another, we're peeling back one more layer, Tom. The IRA owned trust is out of Quincy's view. We created a trust. We're going to do that where the money for the IRA, from the IRA goes to the trust. The trust now is the lender. Takes an assignment of the interest. Quincy doesn't care about any other documentation. He doesn't need to see any of that because the investment is in a trust. You see how that's good? So
the check goes from
Wire.
West IRA to
To-
the attorney's office where the closing is.
that's exactly right.
And it's a wire.
It's a wire, so the money goes just like that. So how long do you think it takes Quincy to fund a trust investment? All he's got to do is see, did you guys sign it? No, it does. Yeah, it takes 24 hours. Now, how much faster is that than making somebody pore over those documents? I've had it kicked out because I reformatted deed of trust, and in reformatting it went from page 7 to 9, but it's because I changed the font. They wouldn't fund it because the page number was wrong.
Looks like you missed pages.
Yeah, yes.
Did you create an installment sale if you sold it personally?
Could I create an installment sale if I sold it personally, if I had owned it for 12 months or more? Okay?
If you didn't, is that,
No, that's dealer property.
okay, so you've got a taxable debt, so you keep the back end.
See, now think about what I said earlier. I don't care if I rent it for some period of time. I like that because I get to see crazy. I also like the calendar clicking if it's a non-IRA deal. You see how, your reason for that? Well, the calendar, if you buy a rental house and keep it for 12 months, and it's your intent to rent it, and then you sell it, then it qualifies for installment sale, which is your tax as you receive the money, not on it all. Okay? Interesting, huh? Can you do this? All day long. It's not a hard thing to do. Now, think about this. What did I get? Think about what Wally made on that deal. All right, I'm going to keep the $4,000 if I can get it. I probably got about $5,000 in reserve for that property that I can spend on it later if I needed to, because I've actually created a note for more than I've got in it. Right? All right, so how much money did Wally make on that deal? All right, $9,000 if I don't have to spend any money on it, and if I collect on it. So you guys that like flip properties, y'all make $9,000 on flips on a $16,000 purchase? Oh, but wait. What about that $450 a month starting at payment 101 through 180? Do you flippers get to do that? Who said I'm only interested in residual income? Who said that today? Somebody did. Rob said that. You're only interested in that. So really, if I let somebody else have all the rest of it, if I just ended up with residual income, would that be enough? I got zero investment in it. It'd be fine. It'd be okay. So how many of those you want? You don't need 2 million. How many do you need? How many do you really need to have them coming in? Let's come on. How many do you need, Tom? All right. So how many total do you need? Per year. I like the way you're thinking. All right. So if you did 20 this year, you did 20 next year, you do 20 the next year, you do 20 the next year. All of a sudden, I've pushed my retirement out pretty dang good. How much is 20 per year times 450? That's close to $10,000 a month, isn't it?
You're going to get
Compounded. So that's my thinking. I'm trying to build future income streams. Will they all work out? No, they won't all work out. Will I have to solve problems? Yes, I'm going to have to solve problems. Is it worth doing? I think so. I think it's a better choice than renting it. I think it's a better choice than flipping it. And what does it do to the homeowner?
pride of ownership. Pride of ownership.
It changes the city. It changes families. That lady who's coming in here is leaving an apartment complex that she's got the cutest 6-year-old daughter. Hattie's 6 years old. I would hate to think my granddaughter is living in an apartment complex that she can't go outside and play because she doesn't know who's walking around that complex. Terrible. All right, Quincy, you want to say something? Come and say it.
Before he does, let me make a mention. You know, with the what you just pointed out, you got 100 payments there, so if you at 63, that's going to be 8+ years out, 8.5 years.
8.3.
So you might think, well, you know, I might need HSA money, and you run that through an HSA account, or in the case of Hattie, you want her to have her college education paid, you can put that note, that deal right in her covenant.
So that's right, JB. So they didn't have these Roths around until 95 or so. And what I did to send my kids to college, in this neighborhood right here, I just bought some rental property. Put it on 15-year note, it broke even 15 years. When I went to college, I sold them. I mean, that wasn't too hard. Now you can do that same thing in a tax-free environment.